this guy some type of genius? Why didn't anybody ever think of this? You can't take exit polls from people as they exit the poll.
What's going on, you guys? Today we have Sam Seder cooking Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has gone full MAGA propaganda machine. Sam Seder is calling him out. Let's get into it.
Yeah, blocked him.
The world has gone back to where it's supposed to be. And
I hope not.
two effing idiots sit around thinking that they've thought an original thought and no one's thought it before, and they apparently don't have Google to find out, like, yeah, actually, the professionals have thought about this. This is so fascinatingly stupid. I don't even know what to say about this, but here's Rogan, who doesn't even pretend anymore, and Brett Weinstein, who's, like, I think increasingly just gone completely out of his mind.
Like, hey, one of the things that I've always said, and everyone sort of agrees with this. I mean, literally everyone, even people that think that the election was 100% legitimate. The percentage of voter fraud is never zero, correct? And they're always like, yes. No one can say it's zero. It's not zero. There's a bunch of slippery people that get arrested on both sides of the aisle.
Pause it for a second.
And Democrats.
Pause it for a second. First off, actually, if you look at people who have been arrested and convicted of voter fraud, there has been more Republicans than Democrats. But nevertheless, there is 0% of no phenomena in the world. The real question is, has there been voter fraud that has changed the outcome of any election anywhere? And the answer is, not that anyone has ever found. No. And certainly it's not for lack of trying. Going back to 2005, prior to that, John Ashcroft fired a bunch of U.S. attorney generals located in states, the ones that would not come up with any voter fraud charges. That was a huge scandal during the Bush years. And Karl Rove was trying to do, they wanted to push this narrative that there is voter fraud, and they could not find any cases. And so they fired a couple of attorney generals, and people going like, what's going on here? There is no.
And if you really want to break it down, we have even back in 2020, whenever it was Joe Biden who was elected president, it was Donald Trump who claimed voter fraud. Now we have 2024, and President Trump has been elected. Kamala didn't say anything about that matter. And then you have Trump coming out saying that he rigged the election, that Elon helped him rig the election. And he said this multiple times. I think that he just doesn't care anymore. He feels very, very untouchable. But it's clear to see that you have one person who was calling it out because they were a sore loser. And now you have the other side who's not calling it out. But Trump's saying that he stole the election.
Zero evidence that there has been any type of voter fraud that has changed the outcome of any election. Like, out of 330, whatever it is, 160 million votes anticipated this year in the presidential election, we're talking like literally single digits. Because why would you? Why wouldn't an individual do that?
Yeah.
But these guys have figured out something that no one's ever thought about before. Wait till you hear this.
Zero, correct? And they're always like, yes. No one can say it's zero. It's not zero. There's a bunch of slippery people that get arrested on both sides of the aisle. Republicans and Democrats get arrested for election fraud. It's a real crime. The idea that they commit all these other acts of fraud and deception, but when it comes to elections,
Pause it.
Brett, that's a sacred and
Pause it. Now, he shifted. Voter fraud versus election fraud.
they do.
Now, voter fraud is when you vote illegally, like twice, or you take someone else's ballot. Election fraud is a much broader term, frankly, that can involve everything from like what Jack and, those two ding-dongs, I can't remember, have engaged in. Yeah, Bergman and Wall, or, attempting to like have wholesale fraud or, picking up ballots. Now that election fraud, still We don't have examples of that actually implicating any election.
Yeah, but it involves, to the extent elections are under threat in this country, it's because of things like this, which aren't really had because of the underlying, like, oh, we're actually afraid of the impact of illegal voting. It's to undermine votes in a court so that the election can be stolen, hypothetically.
And Trump did this dozens of times, attempted this dozens of times in the wake.
And even though the voting system may not be perfect, even though that we have seen voting repression and intimidation in the past, especially during the Reconstruction era, whenever the Republicans were siding with the KKK and wanting to make sure that, you know, they were pressing all these black voters from going out, even though that may have happened in the past, it is important to still believe in a system, in a government. Otherwise, you face this idea that you cannot trust the government, and now we have to trust the big orange man.
Of the 2020 election, thrown out of court every single time. So with that shift, now we're in the Trump area of these like extremely false election claims that have already been adjudicated and were thrown out of court, yet we still have to do this same dance again at with the supposedly independent podcaster.
Also the disenfranchisement, so yeah, people in college towns.
But wait a second. They're on to something. Wait till you hear what they've been thinking about that no one else has ever thought of.
Of fraud and deception. But when it comes to elections, Brett, that's a sacred institution that we don't violate at any cost.
Yep. Well, and the way they maintain that story is by ruthlessly punishing anybody who questions it, even though questioning it is the obvious thing to do.
Right.
Because for one thing, elections used to be different, as you remember.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, you used to vote in person. And voting by mail was something you were very reluctant to do because you knew that if your vote got counted, it was going to be very late in the process. It wasn't really going to matter.
It was mostly for soldiers serving overseas.
Right, exactly. It was for people who just simply couldn't vote in person, and it never really mattered except in very rare cases.
So are we to believe that we said to the people who are literally putting their lives on the line for democracy, in many instances, I would say the for democracy part is more like what they were sold as opposed to what they were actually doing. But putting that aside, that was somehow wrong. I mean, we've had absentee balloting in this country for a long time.
Yeah.
And the ballots weren't necessarily always counted if the difference between what happened on election day was different. But let's just go because they're about to have a really big brain thought here.
People who just simply couldn't vote in person, and it never really mattered except in very rare cases. The disappearance of that and the normalization of voting by mail, the normalization of voting across a period of time so that you're not all voting on the same day, and the absence of exit polls, right? When everybody's voting from home or wherever, you can't detect fraud by virtue of the fact that the count that came in from that precinct didn't match what the exit pollers registered.
Right.
And so,
wow,
I don't think we are wrong.
Holy cow. Is
Make sure you guys like and subscribe for more content like this.
this guy some type of genius? Why didn't anybody ever think of this? You can't take exit polls from people as they exit the poll and know what the count is of if they voted in advance or if they voted by mail.
Damn.
No one has thought of this except for every single exit polling outfit that exists. Pop this up. Like, you literally, I found this in 25 seconds of Googling. NBC News exit poll, our methodology and how we're counting early and absentee voters. That's the headline. Scroll down. This is amazing. It's from 2022.
We have it, you guys. We have Sam Seder really just bringing truth to light. Joe Rogan is wanting to sow seeds of doubt in the democracy, in this idea of government. And Sam Seder saying, you know, even though maybe people have been dishonest and mistrustful in the past, that this system is what makes America truly great. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. So it's another day in the progressive way.